Okay, good morning. It's Karen Stevens, and this is Seminar 10 PCP. So we're talking about qualitative data collection and analysis in this session. So when we're thinking about what we need to know, we want to consider the value of qualitative research in healthcare. We need to understand a little bit about the kind of philosophy that underpins qualitative research and what makes it different from quantitative research. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time thinking about data collection, data analysis, and then apply this to the task you're learning for your summative task. So if we just start by thinking about what qualitative research is. So qualitative research is really about exploring different social phenomena, so different occurrences that you may or may not observe in their kind of natural setting. So it's research that is rooted in describing phenomena in words opposed to numbers. So it's not the sorts of research questions that are amenable to being tested with statistical analysis or data collection from a numerical perspective. So it's the sort of research that really gives us a different understanding than quantitative research would. So it's focusing on the meaning that the participants in healthcare, that could be service users, it could be family members, carers, it could be healthcare workers, team members, so it could be stakeholders, so it could be a whole range of individuals, but we're trying to understand the impact of perhaps their health condition or a health service or a new intervention on their on themselves. So that could be their experience of it, the acceptability of it, their thoughts and feelings around a particular phenomenon or situation. And it's a growing field within healthcare, very much grounded in social sciences, as we'll see later. And we want to be qualitative investigators really are thinking about what's going on from a beliefs perspective or a motivation perspective. What are the experiences of individuals and also groups of people? So that might be at a group of people with a common health condition, or you might start looking at teams or even at organisation or institutional level. So what's the interaction between those people? So there's quite a lot of differences between qualitative and quantitative research. So we're just going to go through this table here. So we've got qualitative research here and quantitative here. So if we're thinking about the purpose of these types of research, qualitative is really trying to gain an insight into a particular practice. Whereas quantitative, we're often thinking about magnitude, something we can measure. So, for example, how widespread is a practice, or but it needs to be something that is amenable to numerical analysis. When we start a quantitative study, because it's about hypothesis testing, we will have some kind of predetermined categories. So we'll have an idea of what variable are we testing, and spend time trying to create, say, inclusion-exclusion criteria to ensure that the study is specifically looking at that variable and has tried to manage and limit all the other variables so that you can prove or disprove the hypothesis that you're testing. That's not the case in qualitative research. So in qualitative research, actually, we're trying to start with a very open and broad research question without predetermined categories, because actually the purpose of the qualitative research is to try and understand what those categories might be. So you're starting from a point of exploration opposed to a point of predefined variables. When we're collecting the data, again, we need to consider the analysis that we're going to do. So in quantitative studies, we need a significantly large sample size to ensure that there is statistical power. So we need enough people in each of the groups, so the control group and the novel intervention group, if we're thinking from an RCT perspective, that statistically there is no doubt, or that we've reduced doubt by having enough numbers. That's not the case in qualitative, so it tends to be a much smaller sample size. So when you're talking about qualitative research, if the sample size is only 8 or 10, that is not a problem in the way that it would be in quantitative data, because each participant is the data that we're collecting is very in-depth. So it's this in-depth exploration, but from generally a small sample size, whereas quantitative, we need the numbers to get the statistical significance, so the power from the data. When we come down to the analysis here, you can see again there's quite a difference. So because with quantitative we've started with a hypothesis, our analysis is testing that hypothesis using the data we've collected to support a conclusion. Whereas in qualitative, actually what we're looking for is patterns within the data that starts to develop concepts or insights into the research question that we've asked. And then because of the nature of the data that's been collected and the analysis of that data, the way the results are presented within a research publication will be quite different. So in quantitative, we would expect to be seeing numerical summaries, tables with the data in, possibly some graphical representation of that data, and we would be expecting discussion round statistics. Whereas in qualitative, it tends to be more narrative explanation with of the themes and patterns that have been found during the data analysis. And you'll see when you're reading qualitative papers that they will have direct quotations from some of the, particularly if it was interview or focus group studies, you'll find direct quotations from the data collection. And then again, when we come to sampling, we have to consider the numbers that we require in a quantitative study for it to be statistically significant, and again the power of the sample number to be correct. So that drives the sampling, whereas that's not the case in qualitative, and it's more a kind of theoretical sampling. Okay, so if we build on that, so that's given you a kind of comparison of qualitative versus quantitative research. If we start to think about what are some of the characteristics of qualitative research, so what makes something a piece of qualitative research, beyond the notion that it's words opposed to numbers, or it's subjective versus objective, which is often one of the ways it's talked about, particularly when we're first starting to understand qualitative research. So we have to start from a point of belief that there are multiple realities. So each and every individual has their own unique perception and understanding of their own reality, and qualitative research aims to explore that. The researcher and those people kind of reading and exploring qualitative research need to have this commitment to really understanding and applying the appropriate approaches. So when we start to look at the types of kind of background underpinnings of the types of qualitative research, is that the appropriate approach for the question that's being asked or the topic that's being looked at? there needs to be a commitment to the participant's view. So no participant's view is wrong. All the views that that are being collected, analysed, explored are valid and contribute to this understanding of multiple realities. As much as possible, the data collection methods should try not to interfere with the natural setting. So this is particularly true for observation studies. So we know that people behave differently when they're being observed. So what the researchers will try and do is minimise that disruption to the natural setting. When it gets to the reporting of the data, it's important that it's a true reflection of the participants' view of the world, their world, and not the researchers' opinion on that. And so we'll see later that the researchers' biases and are part of the discussion points. So the researcher is intimately involved in the research itself. So although qualitative research is based in words and asking people's opinions and thoughts and experiences, there is structure within that to try and reduce subjectivity. So although in qualitative inquiry values and acknowledges subjectivity, there is structure within that. It's not just about ask some questions and put their opinions down on paper. There is a process to follow, and there are ways to ensure that that piece of research is rigorous, and that will come out a lot more in Seminar 11. And as I've already said, there's an acknowledgement within qualitative research regarding the impact of the researcher themselves. So qualitative research in physiotherapy is growing, and you'll find that it's reported in different ways or used in different ways. So sometimes it's standalone studies, and these are the studies that we're asking you to look at for your assignment in PCP. Sometimes you'll see that it's used in combination with a quantitative study. So there might be two or more arms of a single study where they might test out a new intervention using an RCT, for example, and then alongside that actually do some qualitative research about the experiences of the participants using that new novel intervention, so that you're getting a very holistic view of in this case, the particular intervention that research is looking at. And that can be a really useful way to really understand how well a new intervention or an old intervention, but understand the efficacy of that by bringing in the qualitative element. So, as it says on the slides, it gives you some ideas around the sorts of areas of research that might be used in physiotherapy. If we look down here, we're thinking about the development of outcome measures. We can't develop a tool around quality of life really without understanding what quality of life means to different individuals. So that would be one example. Things like looking at attitudes around physiotherapy or a particular intervention is another area of common research. Okay, so one of the things that's quite challenging about qualitative research is there's quite a lot of language that is not familiar to us as physiotherapists or commonly used in healthcare. So sometimes it can feel a bit challenging reading some of the articles. These are some of the popular approaches to qualitative research in healthcare. So ethnography, excuse me, I can never say that very well, grounded theory or phenomenology. If we move on to the next slide, I think it helps us to start understand what these words mean. So essentially, if we look down this central column here, they are different types of approaches based in other disciplines. So if we look at phenomenology, so this is kind of the understanding meaning attached to a particular phenomenon or occurrence.